The 10 Plagues. Today we find Moses and Aaron meeting Pharaoh for the first time at the banks of the River Nile. They give Pharaoh a message from God. Let my people go so that they can worship me in the wilderness. For the first time, Pharaoh refuses. He wants to keep his slaves. After all, they do a lot of work for him for free. Aaron strikes the river with his staff, as God has told him to, and the water turns to blood. The fish die and the river stinks. But Pharaoh is stubborn. The answer is still no. And Pharaoh remains stubborn for a long time, even though God brings another 8 plagues upon Egypt. The second plague is a load of frogs that come out of the water and invade all the houses. Pharaoh hates this, and his answer is now yes. But once God takes the frogs away, Pharaoh breaks his promise. And this is going to happen time and time again. Next, the dust on the ground turns into gnats when Aaron strikes the ground with his staff. Pharaoh's magicians can't copy this miracle, and they tell Pharaoh that this is indeed the finger of God. But he still remains hard and stubborn. Now God sends swarms of flies. They are everywhere, buzzing around, but not at Goshen, where God's people, the Hebrews, live. Now Pharaoh is willing to give in, just a bit. They can go, but not too far, he says. Moses prays on Pharaoh's behalf, but once the flies are gone, he breaks his promise yet again. Moses warns Pharaoh that if he keeps refusing, then God is going to send a terrible sickness on all the livestock. And sure enough, all their livestock die the following day, but not the livestock of the Hebrews. And Pharaoh summons Moses when he finds this out, but he still refuses to let the Hebrews go. Moses throws soot into the air, which fills the air and causes painful boils to cover the Egyptians and their animals. And still Pharaoh refuses. In fact, Pharaoh either continues to refuse or makes promises to let the Hebrews go, only to break his promise straight after. He's determined to defy God. Now God sends more plagues. A plague of locusts that eat up all the crops. This is followed by darkness covering the land. Pharaoh seems to relent each time, only to break his word after the plagues are taken away. Pharaoh's angry, and he tells Moses to get out of his sight. And Moses is angry too, and warns Pharaoh that God is going to send a terrible plague. All the firstborn son of every family will die through the night, but will not touch the Hebrews. Yet still he defies God. Now God gives instructions to Moses, so his people can avoid this terrible plague. Every family must kill a lamb to eat, and they must take some of the blood and paint it around their doors. Then, when God sends the angel of death to Egypt, he will pass over the houses where he sees the blood. And this is just what happens. So many boys and men die in Egypt, even Pharaoh's son. Now Pharaoh summons Moses and tells him to go and take the Hebrews with him. At last, the people are free and they leave at once. We see from this story how much God loves his people, and he still does. He does amazing things to bring them freedom. The lamb and the blood Remind us of how God sent his Son to die so that we can be free, forgiven our sin, and on our way to heaven. Yes, God is loving, merciful, and powerful. Yet he can bring terrible judgment on those who stubbornly defy him. Make sure you don't refuse him today.
Be sure that your sin will find you out. Numbers 32 verse 23.
Grace is when God gives us the things we don't deserve. Grace is when God gives us the things we don't deserve. He does it because he loves us. He does it because he loves us. Grace is when God gives us the things we don't deserve. Mercy is when God does not give us what we deserve. Mercy is when God does not give us what we deserve. He does it because he loves us. He does it because he loves us. Mercy is when God does not give us